Hi, my name is Cassidy. I'm the Deputy Editor of The Sane, and I'm here today to interview Charlotte Flatley, who's the candidate for Director of Student Development and Activities in your union elections this year. Hi Charlotte.
Hi.
Why do you want to be the Director of Student Development and Activities?
Good question. Well, the thing is, I've been part of societies since my first year here at St. Andrews. I didn't really come here expecting to join a specific society. I just wanted to try as much as possible. So in my sub-honors, I just kind of tested out a few things. And then in my honors years, that's kind of when I found something that was perfect. I found radio. I eventually became the broadcasting officer, and I spent most of my year this year just making sure that it was the best experience possible for students. Now, while I'm most familiar with STAR, I want to be able to help students, whether you're a first year or a postgraduate or you're only here first semester. I want to make sure that you have the time to explore your interests, find your passion, and pursue it.
So, speaking more about your experience, what experience do you have with societies in general, and do you want to expand on why that would help you do the job next year?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, I am currently the SSC broadcasting officer. So most of my experience has to do with STAR and running a subcommittee. Now, running a subcommittee is a lot of responsibility, and you kind of oversee every single aspect of your subcommittee. So you see events, you see coordinating with other societies, you oversee organizing, just coordinating with all the members of your society to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Now, when it comes to other societies, I've been mostly involved with media-based societies, so Bubble TV, Karaoke Society, because that's what's interested me. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in anything else, but that's just what I chose to spend my time doing. And I think that that's been really helpful for what I want to do next year, because I'm able to see what societies have kind of weaknesses and what they need to tweak in order to be more efficient and better suited for the student experience.
Going on to that, obviously you said that you're currently the broadcasting officer for the SSC, which is in charge of STAR. STAR generally has this stereotypical, perhaps unfair image of it's only your friends and your family that ever listen to your show, you get to them, listen to the most, no one ever interacts with it. So what have you done this year to sort of counteract that image and improve STAR?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, kind of focusing on the quality of shows and encouraging new show hosts to really want their show to be better, because people aren't going to listen unless there's good quality shows that are being broadcast. So we've provided students with opportunities to get properly tech trained so they know how to use the equipment in the studio. That way there aren't as many tech glitches. We've also provided a buddy system for students. Now, we had this in previous years. We just kind of want to reinforce it and make sure that the committee is accessible to all shows and all students, of course. So if you have an issue with producing your show, you don't know how to market your show to students, we're here to help you. And of course, we launched a new website, so now we look very professional. And on this website, we highlight every single show, and show hosts can, provide a description and tell people what their show is like. So that way, it's not just your friends who are listening, but actually people go on our website, they find out all these different shows, what they're about, and they're like, actually, I do want to listen to an hour of punk rock, or yeah, actually, I do want to listen to a show that talks about politics within St. Andrews. So I think it's been really great, and the show quality has definitely improved. And if you tune in, I'm sorry, I go on forever about I'm just so passionate about it. You tune in and you listen, you're like, wait, are these university students? They sound like actual show hosts, like on the BBC or something like that. And it's really impressive, and I think it's kind of a hidden gem, because people do have this stereotype that only friends and family can listen, but because we broadcast online, it's accessible to everyone. And that's one of the great things about a subcommittee. It's not just STAR that's accessible to everyone, it's every subcommittee within the university that you can just jump in and be as involved as you want to be with it.
Yeah, and you're going on from there, but talking about how, obviously, ahead of STAR, and you're talking about how you've been more involved with media-based societies. So, obviously, as the DOSDA, you'd be in charge of all the other societies, not just the media ones.
Yeah.
So, how do you hope to manage the non-media-based societies just as well as you have the experience with the media-based ones?
So, I have experience, as you said, with the media-based ones, but really, why I'm well suited for this job is because I'm passionate, because I want to learn and I want to find out how other societies are run, and I will be a resource to students in any way possible. I really enjoy just being kind of a helpful hand where it's needed, and I think that is not my particular interest in media is not going to affect that. That I can provide I can provide resources for other students regardless of what they're interested in. And that's the point of the DOSTA, that they're just a support system for whichever student comes into their office at whichever time.
So moving on to some of your manifesto promises now. One of the things you focused on is workshops for societies, for presidents and all that kind of thing. This obviously, it's the kind of thing that usually gets said in a DOSTA manifesto, it's the kind of thing that DOSTA say they'll do, it's the kind of thing that's like, popular, maybe easy to say, I'll do some workshops and stuff. So how much do you feel they'll actually improve things, and considering that people usually say, I'll hold some workshops and then make things better?
That's an excellent point. And I know that a lot of the things in my manifesto are, kind of popular ideas that have come up in the past, but I feel like they haven't been pursued enough. Exactly. People always say it, they don't do it. Now, I actually met with Kat Wilson from KPOD before I even wrote my manifesto, when I still kind of was tweaking my ideas. And she was really supportive of all these workshops ideas that I was putting forward. And she thought, actually, it would be great to provide more resources for students. The tricky thing is that you can't force societies to go to these workshops. You can't say, hey, you're a society, you have to do this training. But what I want to do is just offer that resource to students. I want to be able to say, hey, we have this workshop. Now that you're the head of a subcommittee, how about you go through this training if you want to, and we're just here to provide tips and clues into how it works. Just making us accessible as a Students Association and providing these workshops would be really beneficial. And I believe that these are definitely achievable goals. And because Kat Wilson is involved and she's supportive and she really appreciates the fact that these ideas are being put forward, they're definitely achievable.
You said you can't force people to come to them, but since these societies are affiliated and they're affiliated to the Students Association, and many of them receive money and funding from the Students Association, so would you ever consider making them mandatory?
I wouldn't make them mandatory because I just don't think they'll be successful. I think if you force something on people, they'll be less willing to accept it. But if you're an affiliate society, as a president, a treasurer, and a health and safety rep, you have to go through training that's run by Societies Committee. Otherwise, you are not an affiliated society. So within that training, we can talk about these workshops. We can talk about these other resources that societies can pursue if they think that they'll be beneficial. And the way that they'll be framed, they will be beneficial. It's just kind of a way of marketing it so that people know that this is in their best interest and it will improve the way their societies run overall.
One of the other things you speak about in your manifesto is focusing on careers and career paths for students. And one of the things you most prominently said was you wanted to expand how the union looks at career paths for non-traditional fields, like things outside of the law, outside medicine, we'll focus on arts and media and that kind of thing. So, well, obviously it's a kind of promise that sounds good. How do you want to enable these non-traditional career paths? Yeah,
I think that, as you said, the Career Center has amazing resources, and a few of them are underutilized, but a lot of the resources are focused on the traditional career paths. And we're quite a big university. People like to think that we're a small bubble, but there are a lot of students here who are not all interested in the same things. We have a lot of creative societies here at St. Andrews, and it kind of makes sense that when students spend all of their time in the classroom in a society, whether it's knitting or Dungeons and Dragons or Quidditch, there's something creative there that I'm sure students want to tap into further on once they graduate and once they have their degree. So it just makes sense to start looking into these non-traditional career paths. Now, the way to do that, I believe, is by going to the students themselves, asking them what they're interested in. Now, obviously, we can't have a huge event where thousands of students come and tell us each individually what they want. But what I want to do is have student focus groups with students from different years, different courses, to find out what they are interested in, what the Career Center has done to help them, and what they think can be done further. Because I think that's the only way to really progress, is just to find out what's been used and what hasn't, and kind of what can be tweaked and built.
So speaking about the focus groups that you mentioned, and you also propose workshops for society-specific skills and all these to help them in careers and all that kind of thing. And one thing I noticed when reading your manifesto is there was a lot of stuff that was very there's a lot of workshops, a lot of focus groups. Do you think it's honestly realistic to have all these things happen? Because they all involve a lot of work. Yeah, they do. I think that it'll be worth it. It is a lot of work, and I understand that. But I think
regardless of that, they're definitely achievable. I think that the professional skills curriculum, for example, is already a great resource for students, but it's underutilized. Now, and for example, the society's awards that happen at the end of the semester, they kind of celebrate all the great things that different societies have done. And for the society that has members that have attended the most professional skills curriculum, that society will get a little award, a little prize money. And that's really simple. That's not the professional skills curriculum creating a whole entire workshop for a society, but actually just rewarding students for wanting to become more professional and bringing that element to their society. So even something like that, just kind of shedding light on what K-Pod is already doing and what they can do further for students, I think it's achievable. And I think that it's needed, really.
You spoke earlier, you spoke a couple of times about K-Pod and how you met with the representatives to get more refine your ideas. And you've also spoke about them in your manifesto. So do you want to expand more on how you work with K-Pod as does that and the kind of ideas that you want to implement with them for the students?
Yeah, so I mentioned in my manifesto that I want to expand the student development side of the Director of Student Development and Activities. I think that a lot of DOSers in the past, quite rightly, have spent a lot of time supporting societies, and I want to do just that. But of course, in my manifesto, I do outline a lot of the student development ideas that I have because I want that to be really important. I want to act as a support for societies, whatever society that comes to my door, if I have the position, of course. But I think that within the activities, there's all this potential for student development that students don't even realize. When you go to a workshop, when you go to training session, that's student development. You know, you're building on your skills, you're gaining all this experience. And I think that through K-Pod, we can just kind of make that clearer to students. So with Kat Wilson, it's having, I think, more meetings with K-Pod and just having kind of a more extensive conversation to find out what they're doing to students, and because everything they do is accessible to all students, but having more society-specific opportunities, I think then more students will use K-Pod as a resource.
Moving on to that, one of the big things in your manifesto you looked at was the idea of expanding how the union communicates with students. The first thing I would ask is just to expand your ideas for that, and also the second thing is it really not more of the president's remit to communicate with students and handle that kind of external communication?
I think that it's up to all sabbatical officers actually to work on communication and transparency. Next year there will be 6 sabbatical officers, and sabbatical officers act as student representatives. You know, they were students, now they're taking a year out and they're working for the students. And as such, I think that sabbatical officers should be some of the first people that you meet when you first arrive in St. Andrews. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that happens, you know, lots of motion writing and going to an association councils meetings that students don't actually know really what different people do or what the sabbatical officers do or what maybe SRC and SSC officers do. And I think that lack of transparency is not helpful to anyone. I think that students, because this is a students' association, we all have a right to know what's going on. And it's not like I'm trying to change how we do everything. It's really just to make it clear to students how things work and the different steps that are taken in order to improve the student experience. So one way to create transparency is just to show students that sabbatical officers are accessible, that you can reach out to them. So if you meet them in your Freshers Week or Refreshers Week in an informal setting, they're not these like anonymous people that have this office in the union. You can actually just talk to them. They are normal people. They want to hear your ideas. They want to know how you think the union can be improved. And that's the same thing for the AU president. I mean, usually in the past they've been kind of off, and now next year they're hopefully going to be more of a presence in the union. And I think that the relationship between each SAB officer is going to be improved and will be strengthened, and that as well will create transparency because they'll just be more accessible and people will want to talk to them and they'll be able to.
So apart from just the idea of making yourself more accessible and making yourself more available to the students, are there any other sort of specific ideas that you had about increasing transparency about what the sabbatical officers do and the different roles that you all have?
Yeah, so I think one there have been, publicity campaigns in the past that have tried to explain what the union is like, or how it functions on kind of a basic day-to-day level. Now, if you read the association laws, it tells you what each sabbatical officer does. It tells you what each subcommittee does. But the language used kind of is not the most approachable. It's a lot of legal jargon. You have things like, this sabbatical officer is entitled to do this, which to me is quite aggressive language. Or you have things that say, this sabbatical officer has the power to confer with other duties or something like that. And it's not clear. I mean, if you read it enough times, it becomes, eventually you understand. But I think there's a way to just set out what each sabbatical officer does in a clear way that just students can just easily find out what they do and what these representatives are actually doing with their year,
So, I mean, obviously that's a fair point. The idea of association laws might be too filled with jargon and not accessible enough to students. But how many students really read the association laws and standing orders? So how would changing how they're written really help anyone be more aware of the union?
I think that when you go on the union website, which is not used that often, you have all this information available to you. So I think that it's reminding students that all the information is there. They can reach out, but there's that thing of who is actually going to reach out. Now, I believe that you can't kind of push things in people's face. They have to want to get this information. But if we make it accessible, if we make it so that people are interested, they want to find out more about their sabbatical officers, they want to find out about all these different projects that are being pursued, then I think it'll just be in best interest. And definitely changing the association laws into something that's less kind of convoluted, people will want to read it. They'll actually be wanting to read X amount of pages on how the union actually functions, because this space is for students. And I think that students should know how it's working.
One of the other things, as with all sabbatical officers, you'd sit on both association councils, and obviously you have experience of sitting on the SSC, but also now you'd sit on the association board, the SRC and the SSC.
Yes.
So what exactly you'd already spoken about reforming the laws, but what exactly do you want to do to change councils to make them more accessible to students?
Well, that's another thing. It's just making the information available, because I forgot the mic was there. Association councils meetings are accessible to students. You can sit in on those meetings to really just watch and find out what people are talking about if you don't want to read the minutes, because who reads minutes? But I think that's just another thing, is making sure that students have a right to this information. And I just want to make it easier and kind of more enjoyable and make students more willing to get that information.
So just to move towards summing up, is there anything else you'd like to say to students about your manifesto or about your plans for being DOSDA that you think would convince them to vote for you?
Well, hopefully they're already convinced. Well, what I'd like to say is that the union is a place for students, and I want to make it more accessible, and I want you to enjoy your student experience while you're here at St. Andrews, whether you're here for a year, a semester, whether you're a post-grad who doesn't want to get involved at all. I want to make it easy for you to just find out what's going on. I want you to be able to find your passion and pursue it in any way that you want. I want you to be able to be involved in societies to whatever extent you want, whether it's just a social way, whether you want to have an executive role. To be able to be involved as much as you want is one of the great things about St. Andrews, is you can dedicate as much time or as little time as you want to. And I think that the student experience is not just your degree. It's the activities that you pursue outside of the classroom. And I believe that all the workshops and training ideas and the career development, things that I've set out in my manifesto are achievable. And really my aim is that I can improve the student experience in any way I can and to act as a resource for students and societies and subcommittees.
Thank you for joining us today, Charlotte.
Thanks.
Make sure to check out the rest of our interviews at the same website or on our YouTube channel, and our rest of the coverage of our union elections. Thanks.